Hi, folks. Welcome back to This Week, where we sit down with grassroots voices shaping the future of California politics. Today's guest is Emilio Martinez. Emilio is a Christian conservative, a writer, comedian, and producer who's been on the front lines of both cultural and political battles in California. I first met Emilio at a GBRA event hosted by Tony Rodriguez a couple of months back, and since then, he's been a consistent guide and a steady voice of wisdom in helping me understand how to engage politically in California's complex landscape. Emilio ran for Congress in California's 30th district in 2024, and he's someone who brings a powerful mix of creativity, conviction, and strategy to the fight for California's future. He's been deeply involved in producing projects that push back on cancel culture. One of those is his work with Chloe Cole, the most visible detransitioner in America today. Emilio has helped produce a music video, a feature-length script, and a national church tour to share her story and advocate for parental rights. Welcome, Emilio.
Hey! Welcome, Dennis. Good to see you. Yeah, thanks for having me to your
said
house.
Welcome.
Did I say welcome?
Yeah, you did. I came down to your
studio. Human beings are memetic machines.
Yeah.
Do you know what that means?
No, I think meme-matic.
No, meme. The word meme comes from Richard Dawkins.
Interesting.
Right, who was looking for like an abstract component for genetics. So there's in the physical, there's genes, but he noticed this thing called memes, which they're kind of like DNA in the fact that they replicate them. So they're like thoughts that replicate themselves.
Gotcha.
So human beings are memetic. Because if you take like a 2-year-old and you get up and you say something like
they'll repeat
the F word, they'll repeat the F word, having no idea what it is. You know, they're like little kids. They're totally monkey see, monkey do.
Interesting.
But that's how they learn. That's how they pick up language. That's how they pick up behaviors. You know, so my 3-year-old grandson, he'll come in and just say the most clever things, and I'm like, wow, he just got that from TV.
Heard somebody else say it.
Right, or he heard his mom say it or something.
That's so funny though that I always just thought memes is like, oh, it's just silly little things. Some retard on the internet just came up with the word meme.
No. It's actually it was actually a whole
study.
Yeah, it was basically what Richard Dawkins. I guess he's like an evolutionary biologist. Yeah, he's the one that came up with the whole thing, and then they applied it to memes because memes are memetic.
Interesting. Because you just make different versions of different things, and
yeah. It comes from the Greek word for like mirror, like or like like imitation. It comes from the Greek word for that, imitation.
Gotcha.
And then it's different than say a dialectic, which is what
we're having, like a dialogue.
What we're gonna a dialect, which means two. Like see, so every human being starts with memetics, right? And they'll like the baby's first words.
So like parrots, basically.
Yeah, like a baby's first word is going to be something that somebody in the baby's environment said.
Yeah.
And then when they reach 2, they suddenly get into a dialectic where you say, pick up your toys, and they go no.
The terrible twos. I heard.
The terrible twos is think of it that way. Age 1, first words. Age 2, dialectic. Right? Age 1, memetic. Age 2, dialectic. 2. See, 1 and 2. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
so, wait, I love this conversation, but I do want to talk about some of your political engagement, because as I was doing research, I knew you had run for Congress, but I didn't know you had run against Laura Friedman.
Yeah, I ran against Laura Friedman.
How was that? She's genuinely awful.
No, I never ran into her or anything. Laura Friedman?
Yeah.
You're not saying that because she's Jewish, are you?
No, she's the Democrat.
All right, I'm just checking, because everybody's hyped up about
I'm just
that.
I'm just basing it off of when I saw her comments about the SAFE Act. The SAFE Act is the federal voter ID legislation that Republicans are working on.
Yeah, she's just a Democrat. She's a woke Democrat. Establishment Democrat.
She's
part of the Adam Schiff machine.
Yes.
So, when they got to go right, they run right. When they got to run left down the field, they run left.
Yeah.
It's just part of their party machine.
They're kind of all over the place. But she's very far left, though. I mean, even was it a couple of weeks ago? Well, she went first. She went viral for that Safe Act comment, where she said that it's basically a tax. You know, it's a poll tax, and then she said it would disenfranchise women. And then I think a week or two after that, she inadvertently exposed the meetings that Democrats had behind closed doors with lawyers and all these groups of people to go after Trump and basically strategize nationally how they can file all these lawsuits.
She sounds horrific.
She's awful.
Which raises the question,
how does she win?
How does she win?
How does she get support in Glendale, right? Because Glendale's part of the district, and she is, I mean, I imagine she's very pro-trans rights. How does that work?
Let me ask you something. Do you watch Marvel movies?
Yes.
Are there any that suck?
Most of them.
Most of them.
I would say 80% of them.
Have you gone to a Marvel movie that sucked?
At a movie theater?
Yeah.
Usually, if I know it's going to suck, I just wait until I can watch it at home.
So you'll actually watch a sucky movie at home?
Well, if I have to have something in the background, sometimes I'll put a sucky movie. I like watching action scenes.
Yeah, I like watching. That's it. I like watching action scenes. I'll even go to a Marvel movie. Like I went to Thunderbolts, right? And
How was that?
You know, it's like, well, you know what? I've come to the point where when I see like human females, aka women, that have like Batman like powers. They don't have any superpowers. They're just like trained assassin killers. I just don't find that believable anymore, especially when they're like 5'4".
Yeah. Well, what's her name? I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Florence
Pugh. Yeah.
Right, playing Yelena Belova.
She's like the little sister of Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, but she's been like somehow trained to be like an assassin killer against like a room full of guys her size. Mm-hmm. That to me it's just woke.
Yeah, it's not real.
Yeah,
it's not gonna happen.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's like when what's her name was running around in the Black Widow costume.
Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, Scarlett Johansson. It's titillating, even, but it's when you're really like trying to pull it off with the sense of believability. It's not, because I don't know any man that can't take down a woman.
Yeah, I guess in the suspension of disbelief, it's easier to believe that Captain Marvel is powerful versus just a random woman without any special abilities who was just trained to be a
right, exactly. She doesn't have any like magic stuff like Captain Marvel. Yeah, right. He actually had like the serum put into him. Right. So that's how I see the Democratic politics. Right. It's just they're just a brand.
Yeah.
So you're going to go see their movie, whether it sucks or not, even if it's super woke or not. You're just going to kind of go because that's what you do. Especially if you're Hispanic, if you're Black, if you're Armenian, if you're Asian. So that's if you're Jewish, you're probably going to go there. If you're a liberal white, you're going to go there.
So you think that speaks to the state of California politics, where that's just people kind of default to Democrat?
Yeah, it's a brand. It's just brand loyalty. It's for the same reason that
you're a Dodgers fan.
You're a Dodgers fan. They suck. That's fine. I'm in with them all the way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's like most people who vote Democrat are not ideologically down the line with Democrats. And I think that's actually what Republicans don't realize. They kind of give a little lip service to that. I mean, they realize it, but they don't realize how diverse Democrats really are.
Yeah.
They all think that they're just kind of like liberal or kind of like middle, but they're basically just like liberal.
Yeah.
And they're not. There's like conservative Democrats.
I think there are a lot of moderates and a lot of conservative Democrats, people like you said, who just vote along party lines because it's the thing that their family has done, or it's the thing they've done since college, and they don't really put too much thought into it because they work jobs and they don't have time to be looking into all this stuff that they're, representatives are pushing.
It's also Republicans have a branding problem in this state.
Yeah. And because we've talked about this. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, they just have a branding problem because, like, I grew up Hispanic, right? Or I guess I'm still Hispanic.
I mean, you have Martinez.
Yeah, all right.
Still pretty.
I grew up with the lived experience of being Latinx. Okay,
you transitioned out of your Hispanichood,
and so I grew up Catholic. And, I grew up in a town that was in Colorado that was basically very Democrat. Like the freeway that goes through the interstate that goes through my county is called the John F. Kennedy Memorial Freeway. When it hits the county line of the conservative Republican county above it, it becomes the Ronald Reagan Memorial Highway.
Wow, interesting.
So right, so there's like some little local sectarian, like tribalism going there. That you're a Democrat because you're from Pueblo. So I grew up in that space, and I grew up believing that Republicans were white racist Protestants. Right? Or white Anglo-Saxon Protestants.
WASPs.
But Anglo-Saxon was a code word for racist.
Gotcha.
Right, yeah. So, and they hated Latinos, Hispanics, Mexicans, blacks, right? And the black community, it's very much so. In the black community, on social issues, most of them are not down with things like gay marriage or trans stuff. But they vote Democrat because they believe Republicans are just racist, and that all they care about is money. All they care about is money.
It's interesting that black people have that perception, because when you look at it historically, the Democrats historically fought against ending slavery.
Right.
Yeah. They fought against the civil rights movement. The biggest leader of the civil rights movement, MLK, was a Republican. Right. One of the greatest arguments that Democrats love to say is that the parties at one point shifted, that the Dixiecrats went with the Republicans, when in fact they didn't. The last member of Congress who was a member of the KKK who died was a Democrat.
Was a Democrat. Well, that was like
Robert Byrd.
Oh yeah, Robert Byrd.
And the eulogy to Hillary Clinton gave the eulogy at his funeral. So they were all in on it. They knew about this. It wasn't like it was a secret. I remember when he died, I was still in college, and that was one of the things that you would hear talked about, and CNN would try to sweep it under the rug. No, he was a reformed. He wasn't a part of it anymore. Like, bro, it doesn't. You're just trying to rewrite history.
Yeah, right. But that actually that whole thing actually plays into that racism brand, because all these former Dixiecrats, right?
Because they were still Democrats.
Right, because there's a lot of Democrats down in, like, I remember growing up, and the South was Democrat, right? Yeah. And it was like, well, they're those kind of Democrats, right? And then those Democrats, though, then when they became Republicans, well, yeah, it's because Republicans are racist. See, it's just, that's the brand, right? Yeah. That's the brand. I remember, like, thinking Ronald Reagan just is a bad guy. All he cared about was rich people. That's what I thought about him. All he cared about was rich people and making war.
Making war?
Yeah.
And why is that? That's interesting, because he actually ended the Cold War.
I know, but he was all that Iran Contra, and Now, in retrospect, when I actually started paying attention to things,
when you compare him to like Clinton, who bombed Kosovo to
that's
cover
actually when
his affair.
That's when I stopped that's actually when I started getting red pilled. Yeah. Was during the Clinton administration. Yeah. When it was actually feminism that helped me start getting red pilled, because I was like, wait a minute, Hillary Clinton, she's a strong, intelligent woman with a career of her own. She's an attorney, and Bill is treating her like a housewife, and he's having all these affairs on her, and she seems okay with it. She's just supposed to sit up, stand by her man, and make cookies. What is going on here? It was like a whole cognitive dissonance I had. The other cognitive dissonance I had with Democrats was abortion. Yeah. Because I grew up Hispanic, and I grew up Latino, and I grew up Catholic.
Abortion, that's contrary to Christianity.
Yeah, exactly. It's like La Familia. Why would you do that to a child? And I mean, the thought of even having a baby, and your daughter gets pregnant and you give the baby away, that's so foreign to me. Why would you do that? I had a cousin who was raised by his grandparents. Nobody knew that they were actually his grandparents, because they just, when their daughter got pregnant, they just hushed it, sent her away for a little while, and then the baby came back, and they said they adopted a baby because they weren't going to let the baby go out of the family. Yeah, they just
family just took. I feel like, and this kind of goes with some of the societal collapse that we're seeing today. It's the breakdown of the nuclear family, because back then the family would just take care of stuff. You would help each other. You'd even craft these little stories so that you could protect each other's integrity, and still maintain the unity of the family, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like my father's family was just very tight. You know, they were just very, very, very tight. So that was the other thing, is when I would think about like white culture, I would see how like brothers and sisters would treat each other, or parents, you know, like, and children. Mm-hmm. And I also equated that with republicanism.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's like this runs, these kind of cultural brandings run pretty deep. They run pretty deep, because it's like you'll talk to like a black person who they're like, I'm for this and this and this and the other thing. And you're like, you sound like a Republican. They're like, I'm no Uncle Tom. It's like, oh, whoa, okay, all right, sorry, I didn't mean to call you. When did I call him? When did I call him that? I don't remember calling him like what? You know?
They just very effectively brand. They brand the Republicans one thing, and they attach an emotional appeal to it, which is usually tied to fear, right? The way I've thought of it is both parties appeal to different emotions.
Yeah.
Democrats very clearly appeal to fear. Republicans usually appeal to anger. Republicans are usually coming from a place, and I'm not saying just like randomly, I'm going to go shoot that. I'm seeing like usually righteous anger, or something like, this has to fix.
Right,
This is bad because of this. And Democrats are constantly telling you, like, you're going to lose this, you're going to lose that. And, you know, that's why it comes.
Right.
If you were to describe both parties in one word, it'd be like the Democrats, or one phrase, one mantra, the Democrats would be like, you're losing your rights. And with Republicans, fight to take it back.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So, all right. So here, I'll give you like another way of looking at that anger and that fear, right? It's not just the emotions are reactions to belief systems, right? You have belief systems, and then you're like, so anger is about violating boundaries. When boundaries are violated,
you get angry.
The alarms go off, right? Fear is about a future possibility and a lot of anxiety.
Hypotheticals.
Right. And oftentimes, like the actual hormone that helps you have fear, oxytocin, is a relationship-based hormone.
Interesting.
That's why your moms are full of oxytocin.
Yeah.
That's why they sit around at night and worry about their kids, right?
And it's interesting.
And worry about their kids' future. Right? Yeah, even.
And it's interesting you phrase it like that, not to interrupt you, but just to piggyback off that point, because a lot of what I've talked about for a while is how I see how the Democrats build that idea of relationship from a very young age, and they make people believe, that a lot of their issues and policies are, if they're challenged, it's basically an existential threat. Like, for example, the way they groom women into believing that abortions, if that's taken away from you, all of a sudden you've lost all of your rights, and you're no longer a member of society with, that's how they build that relationship.
Right. Because, they're trying to respect female autonomy.
Yeah. Well,
right.
Yeah, that's their
a
very perverted way
argument which is why it creates a cognitive dissonance, because autonomy is very masculine. Right. And so when you say female autonomy, it's almost like saying female penis.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like, but it's in a very conceptual way, right? So you got that. So, because of autonomy, a man can walk away from a sexual conjugation that results from a child. A woman cannot.
Yeah.
That's why you have this sense of like a woman needs to, if she has a sense of autonomy where she's going to be able to have freedom, right, as a human being, she's going to need to have the right over her body to go so far to terminate a pregnancy that a man can terminate a pregnancy by walking away. But she's got to be able to do that without guilt. So you'll see, though, but a lot of those arguments go towards compassion, because ultimately
but
that
compassion only to the mother, and while bastardizing what freedom actually is, because it's freedom at the cost of a life.
Well, that's it. That's why ultimately they start forming a cognitive dissonance that starts. It's a very hard position for them to hold, which is why they start like they start sounding kind of crazy. But how they're able to maintain like a lot of even like pro-life Catholics, like my family. That's still very Democrat, they're able to maintain a control over them, is because they're still like, well, Republicans want to put all women in prison.
Yeah, they like extrapolate the point.
Right, yeah. They want to put them in prison.
Or they grab them on another point, like immigration or something, saying that like, we may disagree on abortion, but here's what they're doing with immigration. Or like everybody's going to get deported.
You see, like with abortion, immigration, all these things, they're very like relationship oriented. So going back to that dynamic of anger and fear, right? You have the anger. You have the guys that are like, what are they like? Keep our border.
Yeah.
That's just like a boundary violation. Of course they're going to be angry, right? Stay off my property. Don't take my guns away, right? You see a lot of those things in there. That drive the right. And that's why I think the right has a very more, and the Republican Party and conservatives have a more masculine kind of aura about them.
It does, yeah.
Right,
and Democrats definitely have a more feminine energy to them.
Right, and you'll even see that, like when you think of a random male Republican with a MAGA hat, he probably works out a gym too, or he's got a beer, he's drinking a beer and wants to go hunt, right?
Yeah.
That's if I say grok, can you show me, right?
Yeah.
Because that's like that's like the collective consciousness is grok will spit that out.
Yeah.
And if I say, hey, can you show me a Democrat? It'll show out David Hogg.
Yeah.
So and you're like, he's kind of like a soy boy.
Definitely a soy boy. Yeah.
Right, yeah. He's like a masculine soy boy, right? Yeah.
Well, I think he's very strategically, you're talking about his last comments like on Mar and this past week, right?
Right.
I think he's very strategically, and a lot of the Democrats, even Buttigieg, they're putting him out there. He just did a town hall. And it's very strategically the way that they're having them speak to appeal to that frat boy energy, the more moderate guy who isn't really into politics and, is open to like, he respects his mom, is a mama's boy, and is open to like feeling like equals with his wife or girlfriend, or at least treating them like equals, right? Not that you shouldn't treat your partner like an equal, but clearly when you're in a relationship, that idea of equality is a little muddled because everybody kind of has responsibilities that sometimes only the man can fulfill and sometimes only the woman can fulfill, right?
Right, yeah.
And, because they're both better suited depending how they are sociologically or in terms of physical strength, right? So, yeah, I think the reason why they have David Hogg out there is because they're desperately trying to get back the Gen Z male vote.
Oh, exactly. They've lost that because you have all these young men that are they're living in a feminized world where they go see, it's like they go see Thunderbolts and it's like, wait a second.
It's a woman kicking ass.
It's a woman kicking ass. Wait, there's another woman kicking ass. Wait, the Captain America character, he's kind of an asshole. And the kind of the likable male character is, there's Bucky.
Yeah.
He's on the team to make sure that they actually still like stay within canon, right? And have an actual like male presence there. But then the real jerk of the guy is the what's his name, the red Avenger. I can't remember. He's the Russian guy.
Yeah. Is he cool? Is it cool?
No, it's played by David Osborne. He's a cartoon. Yeah. He's just like, I am going back. I am dumb. I am going to be like hero again.
It's funny because they will do that. It's like they will present like white males in movies now, like the stereotype, I guess, would be that, putzes, dumb, goofy, may have this like extraordinary strength, but doesn't know how to use it, or uses it in the wrong moment. It has to constantly be coached by the woman on how to just be,
Right, exactly. So you can kind of see, like the Marvel universe started out with the classic Marvel characters, that were, stereotypically masculine, right? And then they start moving into The other Wonder Woman. Don't worry. I know that's not part of the MCU, so don't no nasty letters, please. But like the more Wonder Woman-esque, she was like Wonder Woman herself was created because of a feminist attempt to enter into comic books, right?
Yeah.
And again, she's not she's DC. I got that. I'm enough of a comic book nerd to know that that's. But she. Right, but you see that she starts this whole thing that happens. It's having a fruition today, right? Where you see that now the Thunderbolts is led
by a woman,
by a 5'4" tiny little woman with a grudge, and her dad is a goofball.
Yeah.
In the back seat,
who can't keep it together.
I'm so stupid, but you are great. Yeah, and I get it.
Thank you for saving my life.
I get it. I have a young daughter. I want her. I wish she was like that. But I also know she's got like 2 little kids, and I respect her limits as far as she does not have the autonomy that my son does.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Well, it's look, when you take it at face value, it's admirable to create that message so young girls can feel empowered and they can feel like they can do all these great things, but it's not a real representation of reality.
No, it's like when they set up Katy Perry up. Oh, Katy Perry's an astronaut. Little girls, you don't have to just be a OnlyFans whore. Or just shake your butt like Sabrina Carpenter. You can actually grow up to be an astronaut too. What they forget is time out. If that message is so important to give to little girls, why did they stop giving it to little boys? And it's because, little boys don't need that message because they get it. It's already there in the sauce. They get it. They get told that they're superstars from day one.
And it goes even a step further, because when you look at the military lowering standards for just so they can admit more women, the LAPD lowering standards so they can admit more women, and then you look at the rate of women who end up just leaving because, you lowered the standard, you admitted all these women, but all of a sudden they can't do the job, or they realize just how dangerous the job is and that they're not up to snuff. They don't want to do this. There's a reason why a lot of these professions have 90% male throughout history. It's been mostly men, and it's not some patriarchal thing. It's just men do the most dangerous jobs.
And it's not patriarchal. It's just nature. If you're upset with the way that men and women are like this arrangement, go out to Yosemite and start yelling at the rocks, because it's nature. Okay. Yeah,
nothing wrong.
It's not like some caveman decided, hey, you know what? I just got this great idea how to become big in my part of the cave. Me tell women only cook and clean. Yeah, you only have baby. Me not have baby. And that didn't happen. That's going back to the abortion thing. Is they're trying to liberals start. And these leftists and the Democrats, by extension, they're trying to be very relational, but they have eventually they eventually start getting into this cognitive dissonance, right?
Gotcha.
The cognitive dissonance also exists on the right, right? But it starts showing up in ways that you have like pro-lifers, right, are being shut down in the Republican Party as a whole.
Why is that?
Why? Because I think it's because so much of the discourse is about freedom and everything, right? That the individual autonomy and everything. That when you start getting these pro-lifers in here, see, now they're more relational.
Gotcha.
Right? Because and oftentimes they're like Christian conservatives, right? And they're more relational. These are Christian conservatives that are also like worried about they're worried about the immigrants coming over. They don't want to just be like, I'm not racist. See, so you actually have this other problem that the Republican Party is that the branding problem is also starting to happen on its right flank. So you get churches who are going like, we just can't, like BLM, it's like there's a whole cognitive dissonance there, like Chad Bianco.
Yeah.
He's running for governor here. One of the things that keeps on following him around is that he took a knee during BLM, right? And then his explanation of it is like, no, I was praying.
I was doing a prayer.
Right? He's like,
he said he got set up.
Yeah. He's trying to like play both sides to that, where he's like, look. I was being a good Christian. I was not being a woke liberal person who just wants who just wants black people to set cities on fire because white people are bad. I'm a good Christian. Yeah, I'm coming from a Christian perspective that cares about
Your
racial justice and my brothers, and there is no like Paul says, there is no Greek nor Jew nor female nor male, so there are these two cognitive dissonances that are actually out there, but sadly these cognitive dissonances are playing against Republicans.
Gotcha.
Until the Republicans figure this out, they're going to keep losing here in California.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because you made a point a while ago, and I think it ties into the next topic that I did want to kind of piggyback that off into, and it goes. We were just talking about the expectations around men and women, and how far that goes, and I forget how you phrased it, but it tied perfectly into the narrative around men being able to transition into women, right? Or being able to compete in women's sports.
Right.
Right. That whole logic, I think, wraps into the dynamic that you just described too, of like this perpetual empathy and almost ignoring objective reality in place of like, oh, we just have to care for all.
Okay, well, here you go. Here is the one cognitive dissonance that Republicans have the upper hand. Because on the other two, they lose.
Yeah.
Because like I said, just to reiterate, on their right flank, the cognitive dissonance is immigrants are people too. You have to temper things. On the left, the cognitive dissonance is that these people are very hyper-agentic in what they do, but because they're so relational based, they're able to make good arguments, a similar argument that sounds. These are different arguments, but they kind of sound alike, right? Right? But the one cognitive dissonance that the Republicans, if they just lean into, they'll be able to break through the narrative to reestablish their brand with all those groups that I talked about, those those subgroups, and also with Christian conservatives, they'll be able to energize that group as well, because you will get them to see that it's not about the relationship as much as it is about the boundary. A boundary has to be drawn, or else relationships will be destroyed, right? And that's the trans issue. That's the men and women's sports. Trans in the kids, right? Men in women's spaces. The Riley
like
Gaines, the Chloe Cole and Riley Gaines talking points. Those are the cognitive dissonances that we need as Republicans in this state to turn on full, right? Because on all the other stuff, the Democrats can outplay the Republicans in the narrative space, because they'll lean into the brand of the Republicans are just racist people that care. They don't care. The emotional appeal. They don't care about homeless people. They don't care about immigrants. They just care about money. And at the same time, it'll discourage the conservative Christian flank that's part of the Reagan coalition that will say, yeah, I guess there's nothing we can do against the face of evil, and we don't want to compromise our integrity to side with these people that might be racist and might just care about money. So I'll become an independent, and I'll just go do my own thing over here and pray that Jesus shows up soon. Right? Yeah.
So the trans issue, and I do agree with that to a great extent, because one of the most effective ads from this past campaign was an ad that Trump ran. I don't remember specifically what was in the ad, but it was an ad about trans issues, and it played super well in the middle of the country. I think Ohio was where it had the best.
Yeah, it did.
Effect.
Yeah, it did.
And it really is. It's a uniting issue because it's seeing the Democrat agenda, or at least what's behind their move to progress forward in the starkest reality possible, right? And the end game being children being transitioned and their innocence being completely taken from them, and to a greater extent too, depending on how far it goes, their ability to have children, their ability to develop fully into full functioning adults, and part of their life robbed as a result, right? It's something that, hopefully we remedy. And then when we do remedy it down the line, it'll be the kind of thing that we're going to look back in time, think like, how is this allowed to happen? Right? These people who perpetrated this, they're monsters.
This is the last stand. I mean, the kind of stuff that is happening in your neighborhood hospital with
like Kaiser Permanente.
Like Kaiser Permanente, with medicalization of young people, or and not just minors, but like young people, and the grooming that goes into even to have like a 20-year-old woman get her breasts removed. Mm-hmm. So she's given her full consent, but she's still running on an operating system that was programmed when she was 13.
Yeah.
Right. And so she's now self-mutilating because of that. Right. Mm-hmm. So that stuff that's happening in your local neighborhood, Kaiser Permanente, right, is going to seem, yes, in the future, like, oh my word, how is this different than these
Nazis doing?
Yeah,
this
like
stuff?
all the kind of crazy stuff I heard the Nazis do in the camps.
Yeah,
with Jews and people with Down syndrome. It's like, this is really weird. So
a lot of this stuff is also, like, to an extent, it's experimental. Like, they don't have lifelong studies of what happens to children who take puberty blockers for like a decade, right? They have an idea of what happens, but they don't have formal studies generation upon generation to see it. They're basing a lot of it on hypotheticals and speculation of how it improves, right? And anecdotal experience. Oh, so-and-so had this experience. It must be good if we apply it on a broader sense. And it's so much so that wasn't England, Sweden, and I think there was another country that completely banned.
They've actually
blockers.
They have actually rolled back. They've actually, ironically, these are also places that have more stringent restrictions on abortion than the United States, right? But yeah, they've rolled back. So all these places that we think of like as these socialist places that they just all liberals and they're okay with everybody just doing whatever.
Yeah.
They've actually rolled back because that's the power of that cognitive dissonance, right?
Yeah.
You just have a cognitive dissonance. Everybody has that cognitive dissonance when they see like a guy who's 6'5" walking down the street in an evening gown. Mm-hmm. And you look down at his crotch and he's, at her crotch, and she's got a bulge because she didn't even take the time to get the bottom surgery, right? Like, And if you don't use the right pronoun, that, oh my gosh.
Ma'am. What was that?
Right. Then what does that person usually do?
They get very angry.
Do they respond?
Yeah.
With fear?
Yeah.
Like a woman would?
No.
You tell me what trans woman, right? A guy who wears a dress. Right, the 6 foot. Imagine that guy. He's 6'5", right? He's beautiful evening gown. Let me ask you: do you think that he really, when he's walking down the alley at 2 a.m. in the morning,
he's scared for his life?
He's scared that he's going to get raped? No, he's not. You ask your average woman if she is walking from her job that she just closed up the bar at 2 a.m. And she's walking down to her car, which is in the back lot, right, 100 feet away. You ask her if she's terrified.
Yes.
Yes. She's got mace. She's got.
Sometimes they got weapons, boyfriend.
She will gladly have like a possible rapist
that
she works at the bar, walk her to the car.
Just so she can feel safe.
Just so that she can feel safe from the crazy rapist that might be hide around the corner. Right, yeah.
No, you're 100% right, yeah.
Right, yeah. So you see, even those things about like fear and anger that you're talking about, right? Yeah. Because even this trans issue actually, it is why it's so strong on the right too, is because it is about boundaries. They're taking these gender boundaries and they're making them completely fluid, right? Or they're saying that somebody can cross a boundary to a different sex by violating their body, by mutilating their body.
And now it's objective reality,
right?
Because they've done that.
Right, and it's just because of a feeling, right? And then, right, and now what's the fear on the side of the trans movement?
Fear in what sense?
What's the fear that drives the support for trans?
Well, I think it's, honestly, I think a lot of these leftist movements have weaponized Christian empathy, which is part of this country.
They have, exactly.
It's,
and
this country was founded on Christian principles, and I think having empathy for everybody, even people who are different from you, is part of our culture. It's embedded in our culture, and the left has very actively weaponized that Christian empathy to push their policies.
Well, remember the word is transphobic.
Yeah. Fear.
Transphobic.
So the fear.
They're saying you're afraid, right? Okay.
You're afraid,
so now I'm afraid
of social exile for not accepting.
Right. They literally create like this rabbit, like this like double-decker sandwich of a word salad that is, I am a transphobic means if I am being influenced by the concept of transphobia, I'm actually afraid that I'm afraid of trans people. Mm-hmm. That's the real fear, is that I'm afraid of being transphobic.
I don't think transphobia is even a real thing. I don't think you can be scared of a trans person. I think it's more of like you either accept it or you don't. And if you don't accept it, it's usually based on just wanting to live in objective reality and wanting to treat people for who they are and present themselves. And yes, look, in my case, if I meet a trans person, I'm going to treat them courteously. If they want to be spoken to a certain way, I'll do it because I just like to treat people well. But at the end of the day, in my mind, as I'm sitting here interpreting reality as it's playing out in front of me, do I objectively think that man dressing as a woman is a woman, even if they got the surgery? No, still a dude.
No, they can't, because you're right, down on the genetic level, they will never switch, right? So you have this like transphobia, right? Though that is, so one thing that people that they take advantage of with the transphobia is not so much that you're afraid of trans people. Mm-hmm. What people are afraid of in real life is cognitive dissonance. They don't like cognitive dissonance.
Like just
like if a guy in a dress, a 6 foot guy, my 6 foot guy, super white guy, right? Like this guy is like super white, super white. He's like, he's dressed in an evening gown, right?
Yeah.
Or let's say he's dressed like in like a bodysuit with a thong on it, you know?
Oh my God.
Right. See, right there. Just that image, you have these cognitive dissonances. Like,
well, it's not a cognitive dissonance. I just don't want to imagine that.
Right. You don't want to imagine it because it's like two things going at each other. No, it's like,
for me in that sense, it's like, well, you just described somebody that I'm not sexually attracted to dressing in a way that usually somebody I'm sexually attracted to would dress. A man dressing as a woman.
That's a cognitive dissonance, which is why you'll hear a lot of trans women, right?
Yeah.
That guy, he'll say, you know why you're afraid of me? Because you as a man are secretly attracted to me.
No, that's the thing.
No, and then you say, no, I'm disgusted. He goes, you're a transphobe. Right. And then now here's another thing. If you have like a group, and this is like middle school girl social dynamics. If you have a bunch of middle school girls, right, in a big pack, a mob, and they're all looking at you like this, like, she's transphobic.
That's the social dynamic that comes,
right, and then
social exile aspect,
right. So remember we first talked about memetics, right.
It ties back into that.
Women, because they're more relational,
they'll do that.
Are more prone to memetics.
That's so interesting,
right? So that bond that a mother has with child is more of a memetic bond, where the baby's first words are probably going to be something that the mother said.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the mother said. Oftentimes it'll be the baby's first name, or it'll be walk or something. It'll be something the mother said, right? If you hear a small child repeating words, it's probably what the mother or the maternal person in that said, right? The dialectic is more masculine because it's two people having different opinions, right? It's more of it's more of like an existential fist fight.
Yeah.
So when you get a bunch of middle school girls together, they're more in the Memetics space.
Yeah.
So when one of them turns trans, it'll actually become a social contagion. Where suddenly
they're all
like, and they'll all be like this. You know, it's like when women get together and they're like, "You're so beautiful, you are so beautiful,"
and they all buy into the gaslighting.
They're all gaslighting each other. Like there's a girl there, she's like, you know, she's got missing an eye, and you know, her hair is like this, and she's like, you know, and not that can't be attractive to some people. I'm just saying, like on a cultural scale, most cultures might say she's less attractive, right? Yeah, I'm not being a hater here, but the girls will be like, no, you're just as beautiful as Brenda over here.
And like Brenda, Sports Illustrated model.
Brenda's like, Brenda's like a model. Yeah. No, you're just as beautiful as Brenda, right? And then they'll just Whereas guys will be like, nah. They're like, no, bro.
Nah, dude.
No, you don't do it, dude.
Yeah.
You know,
you're not cutting.
Yeah, they'll get into actual pissing matches, right? We're like, no, dude. You know, short guys, tall guys. Yeah, short guys and tall girls. They have short girls and tall girls. You'll often see that they'll be like buddies with each other. You know, they're like, you know, because they're friends and everything. They care about each other. Tall guys and short guys, you know, that's a fight right there. Because the short guy is like, what, you got to prove something. The tall guy is like, come on, get out of my face. You know. Yeah, but jokes aside here, you'll see again, you know, that memetic space is more a relational, even a more emotional space. And maybe this is why liberals can't meme, right?
100%, because
is why, because memetics to them is like it's
repeating, like carbon, like a Xerox copy of whatever they heard and thought was funny.
Right,
where,
yeah, exactly. It's more like an echo chamber, right? Yeah, so it's actually like memetics, right?
To make a good meme, you have the template, but you're adapting it to a perspective, and it's relatable from there,
right?
And that's what makes it funny,
right? It's memetic because it's being shared, but in its actual content, it's more dialectical,
exactly.
Because you know, on X, you know, you'll get a meme war going where somebody will say something, and then you'll slap a meme on them to slap them down, right? Yeah, exactly. Or memes are often a way, you know, they're comedy, and comedy is more about resolving cognitive dissonances.
Gotcha.
Right? That's why people like comedy, because in humor, actually my wife actually did her philosophical paper on this, by the way. Shout out to my wife. Yeah.
Shout her out. What's her name?
Shout out Anthea Carson.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, by the way, all right, here's a total tangent.
Okay. Another one? We're like on the 50th.
I know,
like,
but it all comes around. Listen, when you talk with me, it's all tangents. And they all come back home.
Well, eventually,
did I not bring back memetics?
Yeah, you did bring back memetics.
Did I not bring back male, female?
Yes.
Did it not all feed into the trans?
It did.
The simple point I'm trying to make, which is Republicans need to focus in on the trans issue. And then here's my little shout out to my wife to give a lot of people, they look at me like I'm crazy, frankly. And it's like, nobody. I've been there. Yeah. Okay. I was the guy who hated Ronald Reagan, who was never going to vote Democrat, who now is like, if Republicans do not get their act together, this nation is over. Because the Democrats have gone off, but they're so smart. They know how to emotionally manipulate people and how to speak to people and how to speak to these demographic groups in a way that Republicans are just kind of like too obstinate to want to like address it, right?
Yeah, I think that part of the thing is Democrats don't really have a platform. They kind of just have ideas that they will grab and toss this little salad together whenever it's appropriate for them. That's why they can go and to talk about the cognitive dissonance thing that's happening now. They're all pro-immigrants and allowing immigrants to enter the country, but all of a sudden you got the Afrikaners. They're like, no, this is white supremacy. This is the opposite of immigration. Now they're all for having some level of scrutiny on who enters a country and who's an actual refugee.
Right, but they do have a platform. They have a conceptual platform that can be boiled down to the word equality. Mm-hmm. Right? That's really where they come from.
I even think the concept of equality is not even a real because that only applies. Only applies when you look at the intersectional pyramid. That only applies to the top part. They don't want equality if you're a white man. I mean, a lot of the rhetoric that they're putting out is pretty much on par with what's happening in South Africa.
But their presupposition is that white people have systematically been given a privilege, right? And therefore equality, or more properly equity these days, it's not an addressing of current states where you take like a white guy.
It's addressing the historical state.
It's addressing the historic because history has value. But history has presence in the present.
But that's why I don't think it's true equality. It's more of like politics of grievance. Like you're relying on history to redefine what equality is, because equality is.
I agree with you.
Equality, everybody's the same, regardless of their race, gender, and whatever else you want to use to define it. Right?
I agree with you. I'm just trying to come from their perspective. That seems to win with all these different groups, like black people. Black people, that's something that's important to them because historically. They weren't equal. They've had to fight for their rights. A lot of things had to happen, or with gays and, gays and LGBTQ. They have that thing of we have not been treated equal to straight cis people, right? So you see that, right? And then
I hate that word. I hate the word cis. So
do I.
It just sounds like nails on a chalkboard.
Do. It is. You know where that comes from? Cis fats.
What is that?
It's the opposite of trans fats.
That's really so they got it from literally like food?
That's where they got it from, cis fats and trans fats.
That's so stupid. That's so stupid. I can't believe it. They got it from food, from an FDA
but I'm
label.
going to tell you, they are masters of language. They understand concepts, right?
You're right about that. Yeah.
Because concepts again are very they're fluid. They're like. In comedy, a bar, if I do a punchline about a bark, it could be a bark on a dog or a bark on a tree, right? Yeah. That's what it'll hinge on these like abstract relationships and culture and everything. That's why they're better at art, frankly.
Yeah.
Because they understand that, Whereas,
abstract thinking versus
right,
concrete,
the abstract thinking, they're actually a little bit better at that because they are more prone to relationships. Whereas, again, you have on the right, we're more masculine. So, I've never gave you my thing with my wife. She's my proof that I went through the whole process of this, that I was actually a radical feminist.
You're a radical feminist?
I was actually a TERF.
You're a TERF.
I was
a trans-exclusionary radical feminist.
Not really. I was like a trans-inclusionary radical feminist who was trying to figure things out. But I was the proof that I was a TERF was the fact that my wife never took my last name. So that's what I'm trying to say here is that if I sound crazy, it's because I was crazy. I had the woke mind virus.
Yeah.
I had the woke mind virus that told me that I needed to refuse to get married to a woman who did not have enough autonomy with her to refuse to take my last name. Now, I did marry that woman, and she's kind of crazy too. But we were so crazy together that the only salvation for us was sanity. We'd both be dead today if we had not had to look for sanity in the craziness, right?
So what brought you back to sanity? You mentioned it was around the Clinton era.
Well, that was like my first red pill moment. Because I got to tell you, the thing that brought me to sanity was that little seed of being against abortion.
Gotcha. So you were always against abortion?
I was always, even as like a rabid socialist Democrat who was like anti-war and loved hippies.
Was it your Christian faith or what specifically?
No, it's funny because my wife, when I met her, she was very pro-choice, and she used to tell me, Emilio, the only reason you're pro-life is because you're Hispanic. Mm-hmm. But then I thought about it. There's a grain of truth into that because I'm number 6 of 7 children, so I come from a big family to begin with.
Yeah.
And I had older sisters, right? 4 older sisters, and my 3 older sisters, they got married when I was just a little kid. Mm-hmm. You know, because they were, you know, when you got 7 kids, that's a span of time, right? Yeah. So, but I saw them go through pregnancy. They would tell me, like, Emilio, can you see the baby just jumped?
So you got to see it as a child.
I got to see it. I didn't need an ultrasound to prove to me that was a human being, right?
Yeah.
Then, yet my Christian faith did impact me in the fact that I believed that all people had inherent dignity. Inherent worth and dignity. So that when I left the church and I left Christianity, and I noticed that other religions had, they would have that same view, as a perennial thing, but not like Christianity did, right? Mm-hmm. And so eventually, after I tried all these other religions and all these other thought systems, I came to the end of myself. I actually had a marital crisis where I was separated for a year. But during that time, I came to Christ, right? And I realized that there was actually no religion out there that stated that people had inherent value more than Christianity. Because Buddhism does, or Hinduism doesn't.
Yeah.
In Hinduism, every soul has karma, every soul has worth. Mm-hmm. But in the present day, if you're a Brahmin, you're up here, and if you're...
It's a caste system, but spiritual.
Right, and if you're one of the Dalit, well, I'm sorry, it's like your karma, hey, don't blame me, but you blame
whatever you did in your past life.
Blame your karma that you're picking up feces out of the street with your bare hands. It's not on me, bro. Whereas in Christianity, to go out and pick the feces out of the street
is one of the holiest things you can do.
One of the holiest things you could do. It's like, right. Which is why, like, even Gandhi fought against the British because of the Christian influence there that the imperfect white British brought, the colonial British brought this Christian idea that the Dalit were human beings. And that's actually why Gandhi went on these hunger strikes.
Interesting.
Because Dalit activists were trying to gain the same level of civil rights that the other castes had. And Gandhi, who was, I believe he was a Brahmin, was against that. Because it was going to remove the Indian nature from India.
Interesting.
Right, yeah. Right,
so he wasn't as good as everybody thought.
That was the other thing. I started going the woke mind virus tells you, like, Gandhi was the most holy person on earth.
Yeah.
And then once you start doing the research, you're like...
He's also a self-confessed pedophile.
Yeah, you're like...
In his autobiography, he
talked about... Oh, really? Yeah. I didn't even read that part.
14-year-olds.
Yeah. So I'm like... Well, see, but Christianity will tell you what about a self-confessed pedophile.
What?
That person could turn to Christ.
Oh, yeah. Anybody can turn to Christ.
Did you know that Jeffrey Dahmer became a Christian before he died?
So, see, this is like that's like the that seems like a cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, it is a cognitive dissonance.
But the whole thing is like, Christ asks you to turn away from sin and walk with him. But that doesn't mean that, I forget how this pastor put it perfectly. I'm obviously not going to be able to put it in the words how he described it, but it means that you are forgiven for your sins, but at the same time, you still have to atone for them, and you still have to, work for it. I mean, if you look at Catholicism, you'd go to purgatory and have to work your way out of it and cleanse your spirit and all this stuff. It's not automatic.
It's not a get out of jail free card.
People present it like it's a get out of jail free card. Like it's but it's like you said, it's not. There are it ties back to this concept that I was even thinking about the other day. It's a very popular saying that you'll hear a lot of people say, right? Oh, just do the thing and ask for forgiveness later, right? Because even in Christianity, like you're supposed to forgive everybody. You're supposed to be,
right, yeah.
Love your enemies and all that stuff. But that's inherently, I mean, once you think about it and put it into context, it's inherently like a satanic, subversion of forgiveness, because you're still doing the act. You're just relying on the person's grace, right? And especially when you're dealing with God, like you're manipulating God's grace so that you can do your own will. And what's do thou will? But that's literally Satanism, right?
That's literally, exactly. Because the idea of grace, right, is such that God has this grace that he can transcend your karma.
Yeah.
But there's still karma in Christianity. That's God's wrath against you.
Exactly.
So if you do find yourself, like, you wake up one day and you're like, why do I have a job where I'm scraping feces off of the street, right? The Hindu says it's because you did something in your previous life. Most everybody else will say it's because you, did you go to college?
Yeah.
No, I kind of fooled around. I drunk and partied. I was in prison for about 6 years. Why were you in prison for? I was selling drugs to kids and stuff. Yeah. Right. It's like, that might be why you're right. Which goes back to these same Republican things, which is why Christian conservatives will often be in the Republican Party, because it's the party of responsibility.
Personal responsibility.
Personal responsibility is still there, right? So here's the deal. This is why the church, like Republicans also, they need to realize if they do not activate this church body and stop, oftentimes they want to suppress it, right? If they do not activate this church demographic out there to step into the public sphere, right, and help solve this problem, stand up, help draw that line in the sand on the trans issue. If they don't put those two streams together, they're going to continue to lose, because our nation, one of the beauties of our nation is how it balanced individual freedom with individual responsibility. Yeah. You see that in everything, and the Constitution is just full of that. Yeah. Of, from the top, it goes this way and it goes this way, right? Individuals have rights like freedom of speech or freedom of religion, right? Yeah. But they also, with every freedom comes a responsibility, right?
Yeah, it's not freedom from consequence.
It's not freedom from right. It's not freedom from. It's not. You don't have. You don't have the freedom to break the law still. Like, that's not there's no amendment that says you have the freedom to be lawless. Yeah. Right? Okay. The Constitution is still the law there is a law, and the Constitution is the law of the land, right? Then you have this vertical thing, or this vertical thing with the states, right? Where you blend individual rights with states' rights, and then federal responsibilities, right? Federal powers and authorities, right? So you have these authorities that individuals have authority, states have authority, and federal and the whole union, the federal, has also authorities. So you have these things. Actually, there's this thing out there called the woke right now, and I think the guy who's pushing it is one of the biggest blind spots that he has is he doesn't see that human beings are collectives. He says anybody who says that human beings are collective is a Marxist, right? Which would mean any Christian who actually believes in Christian theology and Christian, soteriology and all that is a Marxist.
Yeah, it's a little generalizing.
Right, because Christians believe that they're the body of Christ. Well, that's, that if you look at the United States and see we're an individual and we're also part of a collective.
Yeah, pluralist of many one.
That's right. A state is an autonomous jurisdiction that has lots of rights, but they're part of a collective. It's United States. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so you have these concepts. that come, and we're not an ethno state. You know, yes, it was founded by English white people primarily, but then they let white French people in. They let white Scottish people in, white Dutch people in, right? They started, you know, the definition of white itself
started expanding,
started going, right? So that even an Afrikaner, somebody from South Africa who has nothing, you know, like, you know, these Boers, they're white too now, right?
Yeah.
You know, but then, you know, like I'm not white, right? Yeah, because even though I'm Hispanic, like I could be considered white too, you know? So these are elastic definitions that happen because, again, because of the Christian influence in our culture that is there, that was not only just part of the culture, but our founders hardwired it.
It's the undercurrent for everything.
It's the undercurrent for everything,
and
right?
That's, and I think you touched on the thing about the woke right, and and this isn't specifically about the woke right, but the commentary about Marxism and collectivism, and ultimately that's what I see, that the direction that the left would like to go. They want to cut that undercurrent of Christianity. That's why they're working to dissolve the family unit. That's why they're working to, you know, groom women from a very young age to believe that their womanhood is defined by their ability to kill their child, right? That's why they're grooming young Black and Hispanic young men to believe that they're oppressed from a very young age, even if they're white passing, right? Because their white card can be removed at any moment and the cop can just come in and take their life because they don't qualify as an actual white, right? And I think ultimately that's what that is. It's just a manner of, once they cut that undercurrent of Christianity, then they'll have the moral justification to overthrow the government and position themselves in power and basically rewrite the Constitution in a way that it makes it perpetual.
Well, see, that's the thing, is that socialism, Marxism in
It's
specific,
the same thing. Socialism and communism are the same thing.
It has no, there's no pay grade. You know, what's that saying? You know, this is above my pay grade. Yeah, there is no above my pay grade in
everybody's
socialism.
On the same,
It's not that everybody's the same. It's that there's the state. And the thing is, you know, there's the individual, and the state is the most important part. And the state the state itself is nothing but a collective.
Yeah, you exist.
There
to
is no
support
individual,
the state.
right? And there's nothing transcendent above the state either to come back and say, hold on, there is inherent worth and dignity with the individual. See, it doesn't. Marxism doesn't say it. It kind of says that a little bit by saying like the people have value. You know, the proletariat should benefit from
it's all bullshit.
from their.
It's all bullshit.
Right.
It's just like theoretical speak, so they can emotionally manipulate people into buying into the idea of communism and Marxism and socialism, and that's why you see nearly every application of communism. I mean, from communist China to even Russia, which historically had huge Christian populations, they have to annihilate religion because that's the only way they can maintain control and keep people, you know, focused on the state. Because the moment, like you said, that they realize there's something that's transcendent, you know, from the state, then all of a sudden they don't need the state. Then all of a sudden they're connected to God. That's who they serve. All of a sudden they have freedom.
Right, exactly. But you got a place like China, right, which is it's basically China is, you know, China and North Korea. They're the only two like real communist states that have really survived, right? Yeah, they did. You know,
isn't Vietnam still part of Vietnam?
Oh yeah, Vietnam too. Yeah. Vietnam, but even like Vietnam is more like China in the fact that they're capitalist.
Yeah, they're like
it's like the state.
Yeah.
The
state is capitalist.
The state is capitalism. The individual still has no inherent value. Yeah, because that's why they can take all those Uyghurs and pour them into a camp and harvest their organs. Yeah, because the state is the place that has the value because there's nothing above the state and there's nothing below the state. But that's not the American way. And why is that? Because we have Christian philosophical roots here. that say that the individual. So that cognitive dissonance, like the cognitive dissonance of abortion, is there on both sides. It's an issue of freedom, but it's also an issue of inherent worth and dignity. The woman has inherent worth and dignity. She's just not a baby machine that's spits out babies because some patriarchal system. That's what's the red hat, the Handmaid's Tale. Right? Yeah, that's the theme of the Handmaid's Tale. These women, they're human beings. They're not just tools of the state.
So it's funny because it touches on something that, like, we talked about the perversion of the idea of freedom, but it also there's a perversion of the idea of personal responsibility in name of autonomy, right? Because personal responsibility, like we were just talking, is a Central American tenet, right?
Right.
It comes with freedom. And they flip personal responsibility on its head to sell you this weird idea of freedom that involves killing your child. So
right. Well,
in the name of your personal autonomy, so you can be free of this patriarchal or being tied to a man you don't want to be tied to.
Right. Well, see, that's in responsibility. Going back to our original things, there's the male, the female.
Yeah.
The anger, the fear, the autonomy, the collect. The relational.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Or the boundaries and the relational. You take that. Where does responsibility fit on that conceptual map? It fits over on the autonomous side. When you have autonomy, you have responsibility. You have the ability to respond, right? Literally. You have this ability to respond as an autonomous being, right? A child doesn't have responsibility. A baby doesn't have responsibility for pooping their pants because they don't have the ability to go and, to take. But a 4-year-old who's not potty trained, you're like going like, what's going on here? They've got the responsibility that they can go they have the ability to, to get mad at their sister for doing something, for taking away their cookie. Yeah. Or, so, you start having these cognitive dissonances. Why aren't they having why are they not taking responsibility for their life? Right? Same with a homeless person. Why is that man on the street not taking responsibility for his life? Why is it? Now, they'll tell you on the left it's because
systemic oppression.
They don't have responsibility because they don't have their ability to respond because they're not autonomous.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're a product of this capitalistic system that just spits people out, and they're not. Yeah, whatever just Marxist justification they use.
Right. So when Republicans say, no, that person can get up and do things, that person can do this, right? Well, then you've got to also create an environment where people can get up and do things. When they do respond, there's something there. So it's a complex, tapestry where both the male and the female actually need each other. They actually help. Relationships or rather on this side, relationships and boundaries.
Yeah.
It's right. They actually need each other. Like a healthy relationship has boundaries.
Yeah.
Healthy boundaries they still have relationships.
Yeah.
Which is why, like right now, even like with this border process, the problem is we have unhealthy boundaries with Mexico.
Yeah.
Which creates an unhealthy relationship with Mexico.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we have unhealthy boundaries, I would say, with most of the world, that we've just been allowing them to just walk all over us. And that's why I think, even the tariffs, that's an establishing of a boundary of like, we're not going to let you abuse us any longer. I was having this conversation even with my mom yesterday. My dad's medication for Alzheimer's is $20 through the European Union. She said that she looked to buy it here because she thought there'd be more advanced medication. It's $1,800. And she's like, she was asking me like, why is it like that? And I explained it to her. I said, Mom, the European Union sets prices for this medication, and they purposely set it outside market because they want to make it affordable. But all that means is that they're passing that cost to us. The American taxpayer is the one subsidizing that medication in Europe so that you can pay $20, but somebody here has to pay $1,800. So yeah, we have to, we have to reestablish these boundaries. In essence, I think it's from everything you're describing, this presidency we're seeing, and to kind of like tie it back to the current political moment, right, is a remasculinization of this country. because
right, but
boundaries.
a healthy masculinization
100%.
where people like, you know, it's not just a libertarian fantasy where it's like, get off my property.
Yeah.
That's a Democrat will never vote for that because it's not a healthy way to be. To be just like, I'm just living on my farm and don't talk to me. And I'm sorry, you live in a society, right? Yeah. You're not the state. There is no United State. It's United States. It's plural.
We're all in this together.
We're all in this together, right? Yeah. So when you, if you don't have that responsibility, right? And part of that responsibility is also responsibility for your fellow human being, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have that a sense of social responsibility, you're also going to fall flat. So this is another problem that Republicans have, is they just kind of say, well, the Democrats, they don't care about public safety, and they just want homeless people in the streets, and they just don't care. But we care about public safety. So we're going to hold the homeless person responsible. Right?
You don't think that I think that we just have a different approach to it. Because I mean, most religious organizations, the way that I've seen it, right? I think a lot of the organizations that take care of these kinds of homeless situations, for example, since we're talking about that, they end up being religious organizations. They're very rarely like a private organization, right?
Right, exactly. That's where the church needs to also be activated to do, you know, like, don't suppress. Like, I've heard people say, like, we need to get rid of nonprofits. No, we don't. Nonprofits are an American invention to help make sure that the government doesn't take full responsibility for
the social fabric.
Right, for the social fabric, that individuals and communities take responsibility for each other.
Because we don't want the government to do that.
Because we don't want the state to do that, because, you know, it's not, the state is not everything. The state is not God, right? Yeah.
And the state is highly inefficient at doing anything, even remotely close to running a public service. Why would they be able to save somebody's life? I mean, that's how you see $25 billion disappearing over the course of 5 years, going to homelessness, and no idea where that money went.
Right, because it's a lot of lip service.
Yeah.
But the Republicans, they don't actually they don't offer solutions to the problem. So that's the second thing that they should do. Instead of just talking about like public safety, they should be like, okay, well, what is your idea to be responsible for our fellow man? Yeah, what's your idea for that?
I think part of the reason why that dynamic happens is, I think Republicans, for a long time, I think right now it's changing, but I think the party's just been very reactive because the Democrats have been so proactive about putting the message out there and been so effective as far as even branding their, like, Republicans, their enemies, as however they want, right? Republicans aren't how Democrats, and most people, when they end up switching parties, it's because they come to that realization that Republicans are actually not just nice people. They care about the country sometimes much more than Democrats, and they have a much more common sense vision for the country than Democrats do, right?
Well, I personally believe that the Republican Party has been more true over the course of the American history to those same philosophical underpinnings, the same Christian philosophical underpinnings that made this country great.
100%.
Whereas the Democrat Party has been more of like a loyal opposition. That's their best function, is when they're the loyal opposition, right? And it comes back to, you know, that, like I said, you know, when the Constitution was originally formed, they finally balanced out this idea of personal responsibility with responsibility to your fellow human beings. So they helped balance that dynamic of, you know, this autonomy and community, and also this sense of, you know, like boundaries and relationships. They balance that out, right? Then where the Republican Party actually comes into being, right, is during the time around the Civil War, right, and the issue of slavery, right? And it's a constitutional crisis where you have, like, the states have rights, or do they have, you know, or do slaves have rights as human beings? And we know who won that argument, right? Yeah. But it was the abolition against slavery was primarily driven by
Republicans,
but by Christians within the Republican Party. And then who was the main defender of of slavery was Democrats. Christians included, right? They were Christians in the Democratic Party primarily, but they were also more, secularists, right? Who were more driven by economic interests and not by this idea of like a transcendent human, a transcendent inherent dignity of every human being. They were more like, well,
we got to make money, got to pay for this.
We got to make money. Yeah.
You want me to pay 20 cents an hour for this person to work? Well, that's going to cut my bottom line.
Right, exactly. So then after the Civil War, they're in the Gilded Age, and then like the, the gay 90s and the awakening there, you have what they call the progressive Republicans that have their hero, Teddy Roosevelt, who comes in and he does things that a lot of modern day Republicans might not even realize was happening. A lot of modern day Democrats probably don't realize that a lot of things they fight for
universal health care. That's where Obama based his whole plan around the Affordable Care Act, was initially modeled after Teddy Roosevelt.
That's right. You'll hear like liberal environmentalists going off about the importance. Trump is hurting the national forest.
That was Teddy Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt. Okay, so you have two of the greatest Republican presidents. You have Abraham Lincoln and you have Teddy Roosevelt. They actually did the two things that probably expanded the presence of the federal government, right, in the states, right? One was obviously, with Abraham Lincoln, it was, this the 13th and 14th Amendments, which said now, that constitutional amendments spread this idea of human rights to all the states. A state did not have a right to take away human rights, right? Okay, so but he also Abraham Lincoln also also passed the Homestead Act. Which was the biggest government giveaway. They took all these federal lands and gave it to individuals, right? But the catch was, you can take this piece of land, but you are responsible for improving that land. If you do not, you lose your right over that piece of land.
Interesting.
Right? Yeah. So,
and what kinds of improvements were they?
You build a cabin.
So it could be anything.
You put a farm. Yeah, you put a fence,
an outhouse.
You put I don't know. I don't know all the particulars of it, but you had to go that you couldn't just stake the claim. You actually had to like improve and develop that plot of land, and that's how like a lot of frontier cities started growing. Right? Yeah. So then Teddy Roosevelt comes in and he says he's got this passion for nature. So he says we're going to create a national forest system, right? And to this day, a lot of states, big chunks of land are owned and operated by the federal government, including here in LA County. There's all that Angeles Forest up there, I believe, is a national forest. That's like federally operated. There's federally operated land here. I may be wrong on that. Go ahead and fact check me on that. But the truth is, all these like places are federally, they have federal regulations over them, right? And who are the biggest fans of the national park system?
The liberals.
Liberals who are all like, John Muir is their god, except no, wait, he's actually a white guy, so now he's not pure enough. Right? Yeah. So you have that kind of thing that even the good things in liberalism.
Yeah. The supposed good things, because
right.
It's been
the civil rights of minorities, in black people specifically.
It was all Republicans.
The environmental movement.
Yeah.
Were started by Republicans because they were coming out of a Christian worldview that cared about the individual, cared about the authority of the government, knew that individuals needed freedom to choose, but also had a responsibility. See, that's the masculine side of autonomy, is when you have a responsibility to, like a man has a responsibility to his family, right? Yeah. Right. And then you have this idea of environmentalism is there because we are stewards over the earth. Right.
Yeah.
And we need to care. That's why global warming is like this big cognitive dissonance to Americans and to the Chinese. it's like something they just kind of have to talk about so that they can keep the Americans and Westerners happy.
Yeah.
They don't, yeah.
The whole concept around climate change and global, I feel like it comes from that thing, but it's just been so bastardized.
It's inverted, yeah.
It's an inversion. Yeah, that's
it's an inversion. That's why like a wokeism is actually an inversion of Christianity. So even the woke right thing is like, you're not understanding that that woke is in Marxism is an inversion of Christianity.
Yeah.
You're just labeling these Christian concepts that are on the right as evil.
Yeah.
You're not doing that. So until the Republican Party actually takes a look at its Christian roots and honors them and realizes that they can't just go into this libertarian,
Milton Friedman
fantasy world where it's just, like, get off my property. And that's not America. Until they really own that, right? And part of that is owning the social issues and then boiling down today in California. If they can, I know abortion is not a popular thing because the left owns the narrative on it, because they own they own the fear on it.
The emotional appeal, yeah.
Right. They own the emotional appeal on it.
It starts at a young age that they start grooming people.
But on the trans thing, that's where the house of cards starts falling apart because men and women, you start saying things that conceptually are like,
just doesn't fit. It's like
boundaries. Boundaries are relationships. If I said that to you, you'd be like,
"No, yeah,
you're crazy."
Yeah.
So on a physical level, if I say a penis, a man can have a woman can have a penis. You're like, no.
A man can get pregnant.
No, yeah, exactly. Your mastery of language has inverted in on itself to the point that your words mean nothing.
Now, I do want to just a question in terms of that, because I agree with I agree with everything you said, especially the direction. And you mentioned something earlier, how this is the last stand, right? If we don't take a stand now and make sure that this gets pushed back and that the seven-headed hydra gets put back in the box, or the Pandora's box gets closed up, you think that, considering how Democrats have this system that from a very young age they'll groom women and minorities to believe all these concepts that later makes them lifelong voters, kind of like how Coca-Cola will prime people to be lifelong consumers by, advertising to people at a young age. If this window to push back, because right now it's the most salient window to push back. So many people are on the side of rationality. People are even, when they see, young boys who are competing in women's sports and young girls in high school, right? They'll advocate against that, right? If we miss this opportunity, if it's not fully galvanized and pushed back and thoroughly destroyed ideologically, if they grab the next generation and train them into believing that this is an existential thing for them, and it's reinforced by pop culture and then reinforced when they go to college again, is there going back?
I'll put it this way. You can talk somebody out of a suicide up until the time that they actually commit suicide.
Yeah.
Up until that time, you have the influence to have them on the phone with the hotline, or to put them in a padded cell, or to talk them off the ledge. But when a person kills himself, conversation's over.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at.
Yeah, we're basically.
We're there. We're on a society that the society's on a ledge, looking over, saying, "Men can have babies." Yeah, at some point, it'll be game over for this civilization. And then the next one will start, and I don't know.
And the parallels to the Roman downfall are also like so big, because there was also sexual degeneracy.
Yeah,
it was also a lot of the same things happening. What ended up happening? They got taken over by caliphate, right? And that's ultimately what broke up the Roman government. They got so weak and so decentralized from their own identity that all of a sudden they rotted from within. And it's biblical in a sense, because you'll see it happened to Israel too, and that's ironically enough kind of what's happening with us too. You have all these forces kind of undoing, to bring it back, the fabric of the undercurrent, the Christian undercurrent of this country, and replacing it with this idea of secularism, which is easily taken over by Islamic ideas, right? To bring it to that sense. And that's why you see entire cities popping up, becoming entire Islamic cities. I don't know if you heard of the city in Texas, Epic City, that they're trying to create this city and make it like Sharia law.
Yeah, the Sharia law city.
It is
right?
in Michigan too, like towns in Michigan that have become completely like, I think it's a very, the signs are there. We can either see them, take action, or we can become Spain for 800 years and then have to fight back to take our country, right? And then the country we get back is this divided nation, which is only scraps of what was left,
Yeah, exactly. So I always put it this way: your kid, you had it real comfortable. You had freedom of religion. Mm-hmm. You had freedom of. You had all these wonderful things. Do you want your children to have it? Right. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have children, you still have responsibility to your fellow human being and that child on the street. You still have, this is also again, that inherent in that Christian worldview is, am I my brother's keeper?
Yeah.
But it's a righteous man is kept uncorrupted from the world, but he protects the widow and the orphan.
Yeah.
He protects the widow, and actually in the Bible, it's the fatherless, right? So I started off by saying, talking about memetics and everything about evolutionary biology and all that. Okay. So one of the things that when I studied evolutionary biology, it said, and I'm not really an evolutionist these days, but there was a wisdom in it that I found. And it said that humanity became human with the invention of the father. Right? Because a caveman who goes out and hunts and gathers is different than a dad who comes home and plays with his kids. Civilization is built by men who come home and play with their kids because they have to bond. They bond with their children, which means they bond with the woman. Yeah. Which means they create a family, which means they create a community, large families,
social
towns,
fabric,
right?
Yeah.
Because the nuclear family, it's not that the nuclear family exists, it's that the family is nuclear to society, right? And so I used to be a radical feminist. I'm probably now, safely to say, a patriarchalist. Because there is no feminism without patriarchy, right? And if we don't restore that in this country, then feminism will go away. Women having jobs, bye-bye.
Women walking out on the street.
Women walking out on the street, bye-bye. Right, yeah. Being trans.
Just look at Syria. Look at Iran.
Right.
Look at so many other places. Syria was a primarily Christian country.
Right, yeah.
Look at England. Look at what's happening in England now. England is a half step away from Syria.
I know.
And we're a half step away from England. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, frankly, if the Republican Party does not get their act together with these things, they will have the responsibility of having tanked Western civilization.
Or allowed it. I mean, I think the Democrats are the ones who did it, but I think standing aside and watching, you're equally culpable.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing nothing when you know you have to do something, you share responsibility.
Right.
Emilio, I could keep talking to you for like 5 more hours, dude.
It's interesting. Yeah. I know.
We should wrap it up. Tell me, look, plug in all your social media, everything you're doing. Tell them about all the events.
All right,
do it in that camera.
Which camera am I looking
right here,
to?
Right,
okay,
that
hey
one,
there.
yeah,
Okay, great. So you can follow me on X at the Emilio Show, and I've actually been putting a lot into that thing lately.
Yeah.
Matt Walsh.
Matt Walsh. Yeah, you got retweeted by
Well,
Matt
I trolled
Walsh.
him. That's why he retweeted me. Yeah, but yeah, you can Matt Walsh. Also, if you go to greenlightit.com, that's our big project that we're working on. You greenlight it. YOU greenlight, like a movie gets greenlight it, because that's what you're greenlighting. You're greenlighting it. You greenlightit.com. You'll see that we have a Give Send Go. Just a little give and go with our rumblings of getting a Chloe Cole movie project going. Not a documentary, it's a movie where we are going to be showing what it is when a young person gets the woke mind virus, goes through the transition of trying to become a boy to the point that she has her breast cut off, and then realizes that she needs to walk off the ledge and take responsibility for her fellow men, her fellow women, for the children of the world, and go fight for them.
Yeah.
So that's that's good.
Anything else? Well, Emilio, thank you so much. Emilio is doing great work. I highly recommend that you guys go and check out everything he's doing. All the stuff with Chloe Cole. You may see him around the country traveling with Chloe. You going to churches?
Yeah, we've got a church. Well, I'm trying to get the churches activated, so we're doing a church. If you want your church to host Chloe Cole, just
message him on Instagram or X.
Mention me. DM me on X.
DM him on X. I'll have all the links below. Everything you guys can. His name's gonna appear like the X username.
Yeah, you can also go to 180shift.org. They're actually sponsoring it. That's my daughter has a podcast with her podcast partner, Ali Santana.
Talk more about her podcast. Where's she?
So it's 180shift.org, and they're just their mission is to have a wider conversation, a wider cultural conversation with Gen Z. Both of them are coming from a Christian conservative perspective. My daughter walked away from an abortion, so she likes to talk. That's kind of her worldview. She's like me. I raised my kids partially with the woke mind virus because I had it myself. But my family, we're clean now. We went clear.
You went clear.
We went clear. No more woke mind virus.
Well, go check.
So 180 Shift. Yeah. But if you contact 180 Shift. If you have a church that wants Chloe Cole to come and do a talk there, hit us up, right? Yeah.
I've seen some clips on TikTok that they post. It's a good show. I recommend it. Go check all of that out. Emilio, you're doing great work.
Thank you.
You have a great perspective on this. I think it's important to have people of all sorts of perspectives, but I think it's important too to have people who can look at it like very creatively. You look at it very creatively from a lot of different angles in a granular as well as like a macro way. It's a very interesting conversation.
Okay, good.
And I hope you run for office again. And I hope I don't know if that's in your plans, but I hope you run for office again. I just think we need more Republicans running in general, and I think you'd be a great running in there against, especially Laura Friedman. I don't like her.
Okay, I'm announcing my run for governor. I'm kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
So anyway, thank you so much, Emilio.
Okay, no, really thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing everything you're doing.
Yes, you're welcome.